Uh, yeah, hi. It's been a hot minute since I posted. Let's pretend it hasn't at all been an entire year, though. Okay? Okay? Nice. I won't go into detail about where I've been and what's been going on because honestly, a lot of it is extremely personal. And I know myself well enough to be painfully aware of the fact that if I start to talk about what's been going on, you'll soon have my entire life story and every last detail about my mental health on the table. And trust me, no one wants that. And I don't want that out in the open. So if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But please know that I'm safe and I will definitely get through this. Don't worry about it. Even though I haven't been actively posting on this channel, I still have been thinking a lot about it and what I want to do with it. And I have decided that while the core concept on the channel will stay the same, meaning that I'm still going to have speed paints in the background and I'm going to be talking about whatever comes to mind at the time, but even then, I still have some changes that I want to make for myself, so I can be more happy with the content that I put out there. These changes will, however, come gradually in the order of me actually getting it done. But the first change is already right here. I am actually using a script. I've realized that just sitting and talking is easier done when my thoughts are organized. But since I'm garbage at reading out loud, there will probably be a few awkward stutters and cuts here and there until I've gotten more used to this. Also, I do want to add that I did in fact have this entire thing recorded and ready to go, even with a few bloopers saved. And then I realized that I'd gotten my Audacity windows mixed up through the entire thing, so I had messed up all of the good takes, deleted most of them, and kept the ones that were everything but. So, take two, I suppose, with that. There are also a few other things on the horizon, but I didn't get to that yet, so it'll have to wait for now. It's just a matter of me actually getting it done. Though we probably know by now that my track record of getting things done for myself is not that great. But all of that aside, I actually do have a topic to discuss. And it's something that I've been intending to talk about for quite a while, because I really do not understand why this is even an issue to begin with. So with that said, Shana hey, I'm Little Satyr, and I will be the voice in your ear for a moment. I've seen people rave on about this supposed problem in the OC community for years. But what really made me want to talk about this was a post in particular that I saw a while back, where someone said something along the lines of, there is no reason as to why you need to make your characters super pretty. Your female characters don't need to be skinny and have big breasts. Your male characters don't need to be muscular and handsome. There's literally no reason. Can you guys just stop it? In a way, I see where they're coming from, but for the most part, I don't think this is any of their business whatsoever. As someone who probably wouldn't be seen as conventionally attractive by most, I personally don't even take an issue with people making their characters attractive. Hell, I do the same thing too. I make my OCs look in ways that I find aesthetically pleasing. And if that means making them skinny and have big boobs, that's up to me to decide. Just as it's up to me to decide if I also add traits to said characters to make them look creepy. An example of this would be the character you're seeing me draw in the background. She wasn't supposed to look creepy per se, but the amount of eyes that she has kinda freaks my boyfriend out a little bit. Honestly, it's just kind of my vibe to make characters with traits that aren't entirely human, and that should be perfectly fine. Though people might think that that's different because none of my characters have that typical quote unquote idealized body, with the big hips, skinny waist, boobs the size of their head, etc. So me throwing horns, hooves, and even big chunky stabby claw hands might not be seen as an issue. When in reality, that is also character idealization in a way, because it is what I think looks nice, and what I personally find to be attractive. But hey, let's humor that person for a moment. Let's say their post was because they just want more representation for people who aren't a part of that textbook pretty girl club. Yeah, I can see where they're coming from there, if that happened to be the case. I don't know if that is what it was, because the post didn't specify it, but let's say for now that it was. Representation for plus-sized people is limited at best, and when it's there, it's usually a stereotype where they don't go outside, they don't shut up about food, or in other ways are just there with the intent of people going, haha, this person is fat, funny, funny. Even in the best representation that I have seen, personally, would be the movie Shallow Hal with Jack Black, where the premise of the movie is basically to show that beauty is on the inside, not on the outside, and the fat girl actually does end up married and happy with the main character in the end. But even then, the fat jokes are still all over the place. Now, I do enjoy this movie, and I don't think it was done to be mean spirited, but when you're so used to fat people being the butt of every single joke in every other movie and show where they are present ever, the joke still lands as if it was made with the intent to be mean. Let's use another example. Thor from Avengers Endgame. No, 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 I hear you. And I do want to clarify first and foremost that I loved this movie. The Avengers movies and Marvel movies in general have a special place in my heart, and they always will. I love Thor as a character, and that whole thing changed to nothing for me. Hell, my boyfriend cosplayed as Endgame Thor, and he was so excited about it because he could be comfortable in his first cosplay while also cosplaying a character he really likes. There were multiple other people at Comic Con Stockholm that year who cosplayed as Endgame Thor, and while no one said it, I think it was so nice for these plus-sized men to finally be able to cosplay Thor without being judged for it. Because hey, it's canon, and to add to it, Thor still kicked so much ass, even with his extra weight. But why am I even bringing this up then? Simply because it was used to show that he had given up on his life. He was depressed. He felt like it wasn't worth trying to fight for humanity anymore because in his mind, the battle was already lost. So he started drinking and eating unhealthy things. He just sat in his couch, playing games with a beer in his hand and being miserable. I mean, they even brought in Fortnite just to add to the joke. But even if it was supposed to be a joke, am I upset about it? No, because it was handled much better than pretty much all the other characters suddenly giving up and becomes fat jokes that I've seen prior to this one. He kept that extra weight throughout the movie. There was no montage showing him losing all that weight. And he wasn't magically back to his old muscular self as soon as he saw a reason to fight again. And again, as I just said, he still fought real well in the final battle. He was still more than capable of helping his friends saving humanity. Honestly, I don't think I need to tell you that in most other shows where this character gives up and becomes fat jokes are brought in, the characters in question is back to their normal self within minutes after the issue has been resolved, which only paints the picture that you're only overweight if you don't care about yourself or your image. So, with that said, is that person in the wrong for wanting more representation that's more positive? Like, is it too much to ask for a character that's overweight without being a part of some kind of joke? Just someone who's comfortable with themselves and whose weight doesn't become something people feel the need to comment on throughout the entire story. Honestly, no, I don't think that's too much to ask for. I would love that too. Because, skinny, big boobs, white, perfect teeth, and flowy hair has become the idealistic beauty standard for women, while slightly tan, tall, dark short hair, muscular men has become the idealistic beauty standard for men. And people who don't fit that mold are already struggling to feel like we fit in as is. But is it right to say that no one should be making characters who are conventionally attractive? No, I don't agree with that mindset whatsoever. I've seen far too many arguments where someone in the OC and art community did a bad, but instead of addressing said bad, people focus a lot of the time on addressing what they feel is wrong with the person's character and the way that they are portrayed. Let me run one of these arguments by you for a second to show you my point. This person is so ungrateful and toxic. They attack people who draw them fan art because their boobs aren't big enough. They attack people for liking certain ships. And they are insanely aggressive when people just want to help them out, which has hurt a lot of people who are just trying to be nice. Oh, also the character has very big boobs, is naked more often than not, and they draw them in so many sexually explicit images that the character is nothing more than a toy without a personality for the canon character she's paired with. I'm going to give you a second to figure out which one of these things should be taken more seriously. Don't worry, I'm waiting. Did you guess yet? If so, if you guessed the part of it that doesn't at all involve real people, that leaves no real world consequences whatsoever, other than that some people might see some lewd art here and there of a character whose design might not be pleasing to everybody, then I'm sorry, but you should probably reevaluate your priorities. But even then, a lot of people probably agreed with you. If that description sounded familiar at all, it's because, yeah, that's a situation that took place several years back. Does the name Akai Dahlia sound familiar to anybody? Now, I'm not trying to bring that drama back up, because, to be honest, the vast majority of it was highly unnecessary. Akai, or Jane, as she prefers to go by now, has changed for the better for what I'm aware. She has addressed her own faults in a video interview, which I will link down below if I can find it again. She admitted that she was at fault for how she behaved towards other people, and yeah, I agree that a lot of the things she said wasn't really nice. But people focus so hard on her character rather than her bad behavior. There was a very long video series addressing her quote unquote faults back when the drama was still going on. And the vast majority of it was talking about the character, her comic, and how her character in her relationship with Sonic was portrayed. In other words, missing the mark on the actual issue entirely. And the thing is, a lot of people, sadly me included, thought that this was acceptable at the time. But now, as I've grown up and learned what actually matters with a person's behavior, I can safely say that bringing up the character at all was entirely pointless, and it shouldn't even have been taken into consideration to add more points to the "you're horrible" meter. It just comes off as people grasping at straws to make a person seem worse than they actually were. And to make matters worse, they said that everyone who thought that Jane's character was actually good was wrong and didn't see the many flaws with it. Now, am I saying that Jane's behavior back then, her character aside, was okay? No, of course not. She said some things that she really shouldn't have, and I'm so glad she has learned from that and has gotten better as time has gone by. But this is by no means an isolated incident. I've seen people who've done such minimal things wrong that shouldn't have mattered whatsoever be made out to be worse simply because they happen to be depicting their character in a lewd situation on a regular basis. And just to add to that, there was this group of people that I used to associate with who went on this long rant fest about how sexualizing your character ruins them and how it makes them seem like they are only there for people to drool over them and like you actually don't really care about them at all. And gods forbid the character was also conventionally attractive on top of that. Oh no, what a world we live in. Because of those comments, I felt bad for wanting to draw not safe for work content. Because I knew that they would judge me for it, and that they would see my characters as problematic simply for being drawn in lewd situations. It wasn't until I was introduced to one of my now friends who's quite known for her not safe for work content that I realized that it's actually perfectly fine. It doesn't take away anything from the characters to have them drawn in lewd situations if I so want to do that. Whether or not safe for work content should even be on display has been a debate for as long as I can remember. Oh, but think of the children though, they shouldn't be exposed to that. Is something that people use as a very common point to battle against this. And I do agree that sexual art of characters mostly meant for children is a bit iffy at best, and that they shouldn't be exposed to it. Also, safety measures so to avoid children actually stumbling over not safe for work content should absolutely be taken. But even then, I would also like to personally add gore to that list. Not just because I suffer from hemophobia, which is the fear of blood. I was personally traumatized as a child by some extremely gory images of my childhood favorites. And I also accidentally stumbled over some lewd images of some Sonic characters when I was looking for pictures on Google. These images are way too easy to access, especially when you live in a household without parental locks on the family computer. And now, as an adult with a 10-year-old sister in the family, I am so glad she has her own computer now, which has all of the safety measures in place, so she won't have to go through the same thing I did. But, contrary to popular belief, most of these images are actually hidden safely behind a mature content filter. And when it's people's own OCs, I don't feel it should even be a debate what people do with them. There are only a few exceptions that I can think of, and I don't want to be discussing those here. But given it's not a part of that very small list, if they want to design them in a way that's provocative and draw them getting railed, that's entirely up to them. But let's be real, a child is way less likely to run into a lewd piece of someone's OC than they are of finding one of Fluttershy. If you're creating more representation from minorities, that's great. I'm personally trying to have variation in my characters as well. And my persona, who's meant to represent myself, is a bit more on the chubby side. And quite a few of my characters have different skin tones and nationalities because I want more variation in my collection. Hell, this is the lead character in a story I'm working on because I personally feel like there are too many medieval fantasy stories with a white lead. So, I get you. But coming after artists and demanding the representation and variety from them when they might not be interested in drawing characters like that, it just doesn't sit well with me. I feel like this entire video has just been a very long way for me to say, just let people do whatever they want, it's their own character. But I just get so passionate about topics like these because as somebody who was told I couldn't do what I wanted because somebody didn't agree with my interests and characters, among with other completely harmless things that shouldn't have mattered to them to begin with, because none of these things were made to mock anybody or things that encouraged harming people. I'm not kidding. I was told by somebody I wasn't allowed to like Homestuck because they personally didn't like the art style and found the story to be dumb. Someone else told me my characters were bad because they were too edgy or too quote unquote sexualized when I didn't even design them with the intent of being sexy. It just irks me when people try to take away the freedom of people like that. Honestly, the only possible issue I see with character creation, apart from the common sense issues I briefly touched upon earlier, is using someone else's likeness to represent them. I've gone over this before, but if you find a character on Google, it's not yours, simple as is. But hey, I won't linger on that for too long because I have an entire video about art theft already, and we don't need more of me yelling about the ethics of art and character theft. But yeah, I do believe that was all I had to say on the subject. So, all in all, just let people draw their characters with big boobs getting railed if they want to. It's none of your business and not your problem. Just find another artist who draws stuff more to your taste. Well, with that said, thank you a lot for tuning in. If you have any questions or opinions you want to share, the comment section is so open for you. If you want to talk to me, you can reach me on any of my other socials, which can be found down in the description under my Linktree link. If you like this video, I have some more up on my channel. If you enjoyed those, feel free to subscribe for more. And with that, I'm off, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye!